여러분 안녕하세요. 대한민국 영어 감잡기 프로젝트 데미안과 함께하는 너쉬영북 시간입니다. 이번 시간은 19강 리딩이고요. 여기 핑크로 시작된 연관문부터 시작이 됩니다. 자, 읽어볼까요? I can conjure up what he looked like, and now that I begin to recollect, I can see that he was not so far away from me after all, and that I did notice him. I can see him on his way to school, alone or with a group of older students, and I see him strange, lonely, and silent, wandering among them like a separate planet, surrounded by an aura all his own, a law unto himself. No one liked him, no one was on intimate terms with him, except his mother, and this relationship too seemed not that of a child, but of an adult. When they could, the teachers left him to himself. He was a good student, but took no particular trouble to please anyone. Now and again, we heard of some word, some sarcastic comment or retort he was rumored to have made to a teacher, and which, as gems of provocation and cutting irony, left little to be desired. As I close my eyes to recollect, I can see his image rise up. Where was that? Yes, I have it now. In the little alley before our house. One day I saw him standing there, notebook in hand, sketching. He was drawing the old coat of arms with the bird above our entrance. As I stood at the window behind the curtain and watched him, I was deeply astonished by his perceptive, cool, light-skinned face that was turned toward the coat of arms, the face of a man, of a scientist or artist, superior and purposeful, strangely lucid and calm, and with knowing eyes. And I can see him on another occasion. It was a few weeks later, also in a street. All of us on our way home from school were standing about a fallen horse. It lay in front of a farmer's cart, still harnessed to the shaft, snorting pitifully with dilated nostrils and bleeding from a hidden wound, so the white dust on one side of the street was stained. As I turned away, nauseous, I beheld Demian's face. He had not thrust himself forward, but was standing farthest back, at ease and as elegantly dressed as usual. His eyes seemed fixed on the horse's head, and again showed that deep, quiet, almost fanatical yet dispassionate absorption. I could not help looking at him for a time, and it was then that I felt a very remote and peculiar sensation. I saw Demian's face, and I not only noticed that it was not a boy's face, but a man's. I also felt or saw that it was not entirely the face of a man either, but had something feminine about it too. Yet the face struck me at that moment as neither masculine nor childlike, neither old nor young, but somehow 1,000 years old, somehow timeless, bearing the scars of an entirely different history than we knew. Animals could look like that, or trees, or planets. None of this did I know consciously. I did not feel precisely what I say about it now as an adult, only something of the kind. Perhaps he was handsome, perhaps I liked him, perhaps I also found him repulsive. I could not be sure of that either. All I saw was that he was different from us. He was like an animal, or like a spirit, or like a picture. He was different, unimaginably different from the rest of us. My memory fails me, and I cannot be sure whether what I have described had not to some extent been drawn from later impressions. Only several years later did I again come into closer contact with him. Demian had not been confirmed in church with his own age group, as was the custom, and this again made him the object of wild rumors. Boys in school repeated the old story about his being Jewish, or more likely a heathen, and others were convinced that both he and his mother were atheists or belonged to some fabulous and disreputable sect. In connection with this, I also remember having heard him suspected of being his mother's lover. Most probably, he had been brought up without any religious instruction whatever, but now this seemed to be in some way ominous for his future. At rate, his mother decided to let him take confirmation lessons after all, though 2 years later than his age group. So it came about that he went to the same confirmation class as I did. For a time, I avoided him entirely. I wanted no part of him. He was surrounded by too many legends and secrets, but what bothered me most was a feeling of being indebted to him that had not left me since the Chroma affair. I now had enough trouble with the secrets of my own, for the confirmation lessons coincided with my decisive enlightenment about sex. And despite all good intentions, my interest in religious matters was greatly diminished. What the pastor discussed lay far away in a very holy but unreal world of his own. These things were no doubt quite beautiful and precious, but they were by no means as timely and exciting as the new things I was thinking about. The more indifferent this condition made me to the confirmation lessons, the more I again became preoccupied with Max Demian. There seemed to be a bond between us, a bond that I shall have to trace as closely as possible. As far as I can remember, it began early one morning while the light still had to be turned on in our classroom. Our scripture teacher, a pastor, had embarked on the story of Cain and Abel. I was sleepy and listened with only half an ear, and the pastor began to hold forth loudly and urgently about Cain's mark. I felt almost a physical touch, a warning, and looking up, I saw Max Demian's face, half turned around toward me from one of the front rows, with a gleaming eye that might express scorn as much as deep thought. You could not be sure. 자, 오늘은 여기까지입니다. 자, 오늘 영상이 여러분이 영어의 감을 잡는 데 도움이 된다면 구독, 좋아요로 꼭 알려주세요. 더 좋은 영상을 만드는 데 큰 힘이 될 것입니다. 여러분, 감사합니다.